Tom, I want to say hi, but I fucking sound like dog shit.
Honestly, I can't imagine anything worse than having like the worst season of allergies, to then get a sinus infection, to then wake up and it being orange outside.
Yeah, and I don't want to bitch too loud because, like, if you live in the state of California, this is like just Tuesday.
It's normal smog.
This is normal. Well, they've had the whole state's been on fire for like a decade. Like, I feel like it's like, so I don't want to bitch too loud, but this Canadian fire stuff is legit.
I had one of the coworkers today said, "Look, man, I don't want to turn this into some conspiracy theory thing." And I'm like, "Motherfucker, it's the government."
Yeah, it's the government.
Like, immediately, I'm like, "God damn it, this is just mind control."
Well, and
smog or something.
I heard something even crazier. I watched the second plane hit the World Trade Center.
No, yeah, you were downtown, weren't you?
No, I was in Hoboken, but
close enough.
Close enough, and like literally had a front row seat. And literally, we were watching the smoke from the first plane and watched the second plane actually hit the building.
I remember seeing it on the news right before I went to work that day. It was pretty fucked up.
Right. And so they said that the AQI in New York is worse today than it was
then.
In 9/11.
And that was crazy. I remember having friends in Brooklyn telling me there was like paper coming down, still smoldering.
Oh, no, totally. Yeah. But like, I remember like the air quality in New York was dog shit for like a month. Like forget about,
definitely.
Yeah. Forget about like that day. It was like crazy for like a month.
And you saw people getting respiratory issues from it. Yeah.
Yeah. As the crow flies, I was less than a mile. Like I was like 3/4 of a mile from the World Trade Center. Like, I actually have, I think we might've talked about this once, but I actually have a mini DV tape video that I took that day. The whole day I filmed. I just watched it. I think I'm 99% sure I've actually got the building collapsing on it.
Oh, Jesus.
And I've never watched the tape.
I mean, like what? Like that's like, it's like putting up Nazi memorabilia. It's
right. Like
why would anybody do that?
Well, my daughter just interviewed me for a 9/11 thing. Like they're doing it in school, and she knew that my wife and Sarah actually worked the next building, the building touching World Trade Center. Like she was literally the next building, and like she went to work normal time, and so she got there a little earlier, and so she had just come out of the World Trade Center PATH station.
Wow.
10 minutes before the plane
Isn't it crazy? Isn't it crazy how like it was horrible, but a little bit later in the day,
sure,
and it would have been 10,000. Easily.
Well, and here's the other funny thing, not funny, haha, but like, there's so many, thousands of stories of coincidence have I heard about that day since that day. Right?
Isn't it so weird?
And people are like, actually the day of though, the one that's kind of coming out to my brain right now, I'm sitting there filming and like my building looked like a big building and then the parking garage with a penthouse suite on top of it. And then there was a huge patio on top of that. And then the rest of the building went up. Right. So call it like the 8th or 7th floor or whatever. There's this huge terrace. And so that was the only day in my entire professional career that my paycheck was fucked up. So I had to actually deposit my paycheck. They sent me one in person, and I had to actually go put it in the bank. So I put it in the bank. I'm like all pissy and we had gone out the night before. So I was like all hungover and going to work. It's, early in the morning. And, this whole thing happens and I was like, well, I'm clearly not going to work. That's fucking not happening.
Yeah.
So I go back to my apartment and like cell phones don't work. There's, TV's a mess. Everything's fucked up. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do what any art student in the world would do. And I'm going to grab my video camera. I'm going to go fucking film this shit. Yeah. That's what I'm going to do. And so it didn't occur to me. I knew my wife she was my girlfriend at the time, but I knew she was in the city. There's no way of catching up with her. There's no way of calling people. So it didn't occur to me, but what ended up happening was she was at her desk over the intercom. And it's very common in fire drills in New York City to tell people to stay put because they don't want people running around.
Panicking,
right. So they're like, it's just a drill, stay in your seat. Sarah was like, fuck this, no way. She went outside,
Yeah.
saw people fucking freaking out, saw the smoke.
See you later. Yeah.
She got on a series of 3 trains and took the last train, we think, out of New York City for 3 months.
I had friends that walked back to Long Island.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like over the Brooklyn Bridge, like did the whole thing.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, what else were you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, you were pretty much stuck any other way. I mean, it was so fucked up.
Right.
But now
so
we're
like I remember that, and I'm like, God, that fucking air quality was garbage. Like it was terrible. And here we are. And actually, you know what? That story is weirdly what we want, like kind of like what we're want to talk about, right? Like,
yeah.
So it might be an interesting jump off for that, but like, we talk about all this shit with you and I about like, optimizing and this and like that and whatever. But like at the end of the day, like, I mean, there is a fucking enormous crapshoot that has a much higher impact on your health, which is you ain't got no control over this shit. A plane is going to fucking hit a building and bring that shit down. And I know 2 guys that were first responders, men, that have breast cancer.
And it's not impossible. And a lot of that shit, I mean, they're still finding long-term issues with that. I mean, we talk about long-term COVID. We talk about all these lasting, excuse me, I just burped. But all these long-lasting effects from events that seem to be, a moment in time.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's crazy because like I lived through that, right? So like I told you, I was 3/4 of a mile away. The building I was at looked at the fucking smoldering wreck for months, right? Like, I mean, there was smoke coming off that building for weeks. Like, I mean, weeks and weeks. And like when I finally did go back to work, I worked on 23rd and 6th, so like square in the middle of Manhattan.
Oh shit, that's where the acupuncture school I taught was. It was on 23rd and right by the Flatiron, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked right around the corner from the Flatiron. Yeah. And dude, not to sound gross, but like when the day we went back to work, it smelled like burning dead bodies. Like it was.
I'm sure.
Yeah, it was.
I'm sure. I treated rescue workers at the Javits Center, and it was like they were coming out and laying right down on the table covered in God knows what. I mean,
it's terrible. Yeah. Now here's the thing. I lived through that, and I spend a great deal of time like interested in optimizing my health and kind of squeezing a few more minutes out of this life that we got, and my fate could have been already sealed. Like maybe, you know what I mean? Like I mean, it could, and the reality is we don't fucking know. We all talk about AI and all this other shit and miracles of modern fucking science, but tell me how a fucking AI will like intake all of the potential fucking particulates that any of these people were inhaling during that experience. I mean, you want to fucking really knock my socks off? Give me an AI that tells me why I know 2 men that have breast cancer, and the only link to that is that they were both first responders at 9/11.
I guarantee you at some point we will be able to compile that data.
I mean, look, logically, I know you're right. I hear you and I understand you are actually right. That being said, we are realistically so far away from that point that I am just stuck with knowing that like there is a cascade of unknown that's out there that we have absolutely no way of quantifying. And like, look, the entire eastern seaboard of the United States right now is fucked up because of smoke.
It's totally fucked up. Totally fucked up. And that's always been my thing when people say, oh, or they're so staunchly nationalist, like, well, we'll just close our borders and nothing.
Right.
No, like honestly, this is not some weird conspiracy theory that somebody let go of a virus somewhere in China or
no. This is like half of Toronto is on or Quebec is on fire, and so
the kicker was I almost planned a trip with the kids to Quebec City. I was like, we just got our passports. Let's go somewhere that's foreign, but not. like our passports showed up on Monday, and my wife and I were talking about going to like either Montreal or Quebec.
Oh wow,
Quebec City. And it's like, maybe we'll pump the brakes on that one.
Yeah, maybe somewhere south, like much further south.
Much further south. But that's. I mean, to your point, how do we biohack for something that is unknown, unanticipated, and I mean, I've been hacking up a lung for 3 weeks because of allergies. So this is just like another day for me, but you're getting raspy voiced and everything.
Right. Oh yeah. And I tried to go to bed last night, and like, you ever get that thing that you feel like there's almost like a popcorn hull stuck in your throat,
in the back of your throat.
But you just keep going. I did that until like midnight, and I finally went up, and actually I sometimes I get this weird thing. Actually, I always think it's definitely, I'm sure there is a definition of this somewhere, but I get this thing where I almost like, if I drink water, it makes me want to swallow more. And if I swallow too much, then I get the feeling that I need to drink water because it's got this weird abrasive. And I get in this cycle where I'm like, and it's like, and I got like that last night with this cough thing. And it's like, oh my God, this is driving me crazy. I can't get a hold of it. So I went and gargled with Listerine. And I feel like there's something about that really strong alcohol in the very deep area of your throat
that broke something up.
Either numbs it, like quells the gag reflex or whatever you call it that's making that happen, or it just kind of like stunted it, enough for me to go to bed anyway. And that's like I finally fell asleep. But
there used to be this awesome Chinese herbal formula, and when we were learning about it in school, you'd get it, and it came in this tiny little plastic purple urn. Okay. You'd unscrew it, and you'd take like 5 of these little pills that looked like they were like half the size of a poppy seed. That's how small they were.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And when we were learning about it in class, he says, take one, don't swallow it. Just hold it in your mouth.
Okay.
Everybody in the class's mouth went numb within a minute.
Wow.
Completely numb.
Wow. What was it?
When you took it, it's called 5 Spirit Pill.
Okay.
And when I went back and when I had a sore throat and I went to get it, the director of the herbal program was like, "Oh, you can't get that in this country anymore." And I'm like, "Oh, why? Because it uses animal products?" He goes, "No, lead and mercury." It's like, yeah, fuck the frog venom and the deer musk, but
oh man, that's so funny.
The mercury and the lead, but it worked so well, and I don't know, the chloroseptic spray. Like this was 10 times stronger than that, and it lasted hours.
Oh, I love it. I love every bit of it. Yeah,
I'm probably going to have to. But the other thing is like how much is like given the amount of sushi I eat is like a couple of teeny tiny pills maybe once a year going to do me in.
And look, I was talking to a mutual friend of ours, and he was telling me about you can't eat glyphosate. You can't eat gluten in the U.S. because it's like hyper enriched with glyphosate. He goes, you can eat it in the EU, but you can't here. And
that's Roundup, and that's Roundup on everything.
Totally. But here's the thing, I get it, and like we just talked to Victoria last week about the
PFAS.
The PFAS, yeah. And I'm like, also gotcha, but like, look.
You can control it as much as you can. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
The whole Eastern Seaboard can't fucking breathe right now because of a fucking fire in Canada.
What I love is the fact that we just got out of masks.
Oh,
we're like, COVID's over now, right? Yeah, and it's like, oh yeah, by the way, you might want to pull out those, N95s.
Yeah. And it's like one of the, and funny, my movers came back today, to do round 1 of moving back in, and fucking a box that I had a date of like 2017 on. I had like 5 K95 masks in there. Had no fucking idea that I had it.
Yeah.
But I had it all of COVID, and then I packed it up for a few months, for almost half a year.
Yeah.
And got it back, and I'm like, oh, look at this. I have all these masks that I didn't know.
It's funny because I had somebody that's like, hey, Tom, I have a ton of masks at home. Do you want me to bring them in? I'll give them to your office. I'm like, yeah, sure. I guess we'll take them. And then she didn't bring them in. She came in this week. She was like, nah, I'm going to hang on to them. And I went, yeah, that seems wise.
That makes sense. Yeah, we're all good with that.
Totally get it if you have to go outside. You know, my wife woke up and went to IKEA this morning and bought some of their air purifiers.
Oh, nice. So here's the thing now. Okay, so brief sidestep. the first fucking thing I did was look into whole home air purifiers, and the fucking shit is incredibly expensive.
You do that when you have to redo your entire HVAC system if you're going to do it.
But I just did redo my whole HVAC
I know,
system.
but you should have done it then. Is what
well,
I'm
no.
saying.
Here's the thing. No. Like you could bolt them on. Like I can still do it, and I actually have another system, right? And so like I'd have to retrofit that one anyway. But like you can do it. But my problem ends up being like, okay, great, I do that, but it cost me like $5,000, whatever. And then I was just looking at, I just replaced the first thing I did when I moved to my house was put a whole home water filter in. And all I did was cut the water line, make a loop, put 2 ball cock valves on that loop. And in the middle, put a, 4.5
reverse
by
osmosis.
10, not an RO filter, but
no, you didn't do an RO?
Just a pleated, 1 micron or 0.5 micron, depending on which one I bought at that time.
And then you snap that in and out, right?
Yeah, you have to press a red button to pressure relieve it. Then you have this weird circular screwdriver that takes it off, and And so my house is like between 0.5 and 1 micron filtered, and that goes for the toilet, the shower, every sink, And so when people are like, "Oh, do you have a filter in your refrigerator?" I'm like, "Well, I do.
So
I don't
technically.
I don't know." And one sort of foofy friend of mine was like, "Well, do you do a TDS test in it?" I'm like, "Actually, I do have a TDS meter, and I do TDS tests."
By the way, it's going to be the same out of the sink.
but it's good. No, it is actually always better out of the refrigerator because there's that second layer of filtration. But here's the thing: when you have, like, they say change it every 4 months. When I'm on like year 2, that is still marginally better than the tap water, which I already know. So like those dates are so fucked up, it's ridiculous. And I'm like, that TDS meter cost me like $12 on Amazon, right? Like it was like, and I don't know if you've ever seen like pH tests and stuff, but you usually have to buy cartridges that like refill in them. So like people that have like saltwater fish tanks, they buy these little
paper strips,
but they go into a meter and like they last like 50 charges or something like that, right? Like, but like that's how it does it. It knows the pH, the specific pH of that, and it compares the delta and knows the difference, right? But here's the funny thing is like, I have literally gone 2+ years with a filter where I'm TDSing, and the TDS keeps going up and up and up, but it's still always been lower than my house, which is already filtered. So like, it's like, anyway, but like I looked at a way to regulate that because like these filters you lose water pressure real easy when it starts getting clogged up. So like, on the whole house, the refrigerator one does, but like you're just filling up your cup, so who gives a shit? Your house is like, oh, if somebody had like flushed a toilet and is taking a shower,
trying to shower, you're getting pissed on.
You're getting it's fucking terrible. So I was looking into a way around it, and I found out that there's that PFAS filter one that doesn't lose power, whatever, but it's $1,500.
Yeah.
So here we go back to the fucking Ben Greenfield effect, right? It's like, okay, great. I got all these answers to things that I probably could upregulate, but like, all right, I'm 1,500 in, and that's
how much is it going to cost you? Yeah.
Yeah. That's with me actually installing this shit because I'm capable. I know plumbing. I know electric. I know, I know carpentry. Like I can put this thing together, like if you don't, you just,
you're adding thousands just in labor.
You're right. The prices that I'm throwing out there are fucking whatever. Like you got to pay somebody else to do it. It's fucking crazy.
You want to hear a funny story about water pressure that has nothing to do with our conversation? I
love it. Isn't that the subtitle of our show?
Pretty much. It's like, we're going to pick a topic and then talk about other shit.
Yeah.
Here's
the topic. Just kidding.
I installed a bidet, and we have them in all our bathrooms, here, right? So I put one in the office before I even put one in the house, right? And I had to replace it. It's the plastic moving parts eventually wear out. Okay, no problem. So I got to put a new one in. And for some reason, these old ass valves that connect the toilet to the plumbing won't close.
Oh.
So now I have this horrible problem. I have to call a plumber in, and now it's a big thing. Why? There's no shutoff valve in my unit. Right? My unit used to be one giant garage. So I have 2 of the 5 garage stalls. No one put a shutoff anywhere near my office.
That makes all the sense in the world.
Right. So they shut off the water. The guy has to go tell the coffee shop that they can't use water for a little bit. They got to drain the lines, and then they fix the head of this. And he's like, dude, really, if we were smart, we'd figure out where the water's coming into your unit. We put a shutoff valve there. And I'm like, great. Can you do that now? He goes, no, I can't. Okay, great.
Why?
So he wasn't going to be able to have time to trace it. And the coffee shop owner was more than reasonable about letting me shut off the water in the middle of a shift.
Right.
So we clean everything up. He puts a new faucet in. He tightens the bidet, and he goes, by the way, because this was a garage and a commercial building, a house has a pipe that's coming into it that's about a half an inch. He goes, this is 1 3/4.
Big water pipe.
And I go, oh, is that why? It's like an enema when I turn on the bidet here.
Yeah, right.
I was like, you crack it on and you clench a little.
Yeah, yeah.
But like at home, I'm like, no, this is pleasant.
This is fine. Yeah, yeah. We got those things. They're great.
Like I feel like I walked into somebody's house and I used the restroom and I'm like, I'm leaning over to turn on the bidet and I'm like, oh, they don't have one. The fucking heathens.
Yeah, these fucking troglodytes.
This house has got to be over $1 million, and these son of a bitches didn't even spring for a $16 bidet.
It's fucking crazy. Like, what's wrong with you? My buddy from childhood, his good friend from college was from Syria and has like a watering can, they called it.
Yeah,
it's like this brass thing with like a reverse. Like it literally looks like a watering can, and he brought it to college. I was like, that is commitment. Like that's
look, man, I got to tell you, when we were in Bali and the same thing in Egypt, that little like plate rinser on the side of they have that sitting right near the toilet. You just, before you get up. We are not talking anything about fires right now.
No, absolutely not at all. But okay, so let's bring this back. All right.
Honestly, bidets will make you healthier.
But
I'm going to go out there and say it.
Well, listen, I use the cheap excuse. I said, listen, a buddy of mine's like, why'd you buy a bidet? I'm like, I'm going to give you a reason just because you asked, but it's not a great reason, but there's a toilet paper shortage, and this is better.
Yeah, I had them before that happened in COVID, and I'm like, once again, I'm goddamn Nostradamus.
Yeah, I'm Nostradamus. And guess
I bought a Tesla 2 weeks before the Suez Canal.
Yeah. What funny thing is like, who ever thought that fucking toilet paper would be a problem? But guess what? Even when it was, guess how many people thought of bidets? Nobody.
Because they were the only thing in stock on Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. Not a single person was like, hey, I got to wipe my ass somehow. Maybe a bidet seems like a reasonable answer, right? Nobody. I got a bidet, no problem. Next day, Amazon was like, we will gladly deliver this shit to your house. Yeah.
How funny is that? I got people ripping up newspapers.
Yeah, right. Meanwhile, you can have warm water spraying gently on your ass and no problems whatsoever.
I also was like, look, it's gross, but there is a sink, and chances are there might be a shower or bathtub. I mean,
right. Oh, yeah.
You got to strip down and rinse off. You're not going to work anyway.
Yeah. Right. All right. So let's peel this back. You and I, we got our bidets. We got our fucking $1 billion water filters. We got everything. And then fucking Canada burns to the ground and we all die.
What do you do?
Yeah.
What do you do?
We all die. And so so put a pin in that, go sideways for a second. We all talk about climate change, and God forbid you ever bring those words up. Those 2 words are the most toxic 2 words put together, like probably ever.
Matt, you're too woke.
Yeah,
you're too woke. You can't mention it.
You can't mention it because somebody's going to yell at you. And
we got orcas sinking sailboats.
Yeah, right. By the way, how cool is that shit, huh?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of like, that's pretty awesome. I saw people posting like, Jeff Bezos's super yacht is out in the ocean right now.
Right. Sure. Better watch out for those fucking orcas. But here's the thing. This is actually, I'm so glad you brought that up. It's fucking the same thing. I got $100 million yacht with a fucking crew who knows what they're doing, a crackpot security guard on board, weapons up the wazoo. I can fucking shoot down a fucking helicopter from 100 clicks. But a fucking orca is going to take me
honestly, if somebody's like, look, these orcas got out, there were secret, CIA project, I'd be like, yeah, that sounds right.
Stop it. They're fucking whales, for Christ's sake.
They probably had like, shit, there's no food and everything tastes like plastic.
Oh my God. Right.
Dude, they're kill a bunch of these fuckers.
Hey, I heard on there's these little appetizers. They're like really small, but like they're tasty. We should get in on that action, right? Yeah. They're not quite as big as a dolphin, so that kind of sucks. But hey,
Yeah,
But like that's the same thing, man. You fucking armed to the hilt. You're out in the ocean, and fucking you get taken out by a goddamn
whale.
Right, a fucking whale, right?
I mean, it does have the word killer in its name.
It does. And it's funny because when I was in Iceland, we went to the whale museum and they took really, really, took a lot of umbrage to the killer whale part.
Yeah. It's
they were
funny.
whale nerds, to be specific. I mean,
there was a, I grew up on Long Island, and there was a whaling museum there that we went on a couple of field trips to. And you got to see Scrimshaw and how they would they'd show you a video them killing whales, which is kind of like fucking horrific as a grade schooler.
Yeah, you're like, is this like a snuff
film? Why did they just kill Flipper?
Yeah.
Oh, they're gonna eat Flipper. Don't worry. That's kind of fucked up too.
Yeah.
I thought they were smart.
Well, I went to Iceland, like I said, to this thing, and we were at this whale museum, and like they said that Iceland actually still practices whaling, and I was like, why am I in this country? Like, what is wrong with these people? Like, it's not like they need it. Like, if you were an Inuit village in Alaska, I'm all in. Like, because
I got it. That's your food source.
That's your food source, and guess what? They eat that whale for 6 months. Like,
that could feed a village. Yeah.
Like, and they keep it, and they use every drop of that whale, right? The bones are used for this, that, and the other. And fat, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, all right, look, I'm horrified by this. However, you seem to be doing right by it, and it's almost,
and they're not killing a whole pod. They're not killing everything.
No, of course not. But I was on a glacier, right? This is the sideways thing. 20 minutes later, we're finally going to get to the sideways part, right? Well, I'm on a glacier in an SUV with 42-inch tires that, by the way, were very cool. You could inflate and deflate each one of them individually from the dashboard.
Wow, that's super cool.
Super fun. Anyway, and somebody in the car was like, so you're out here since you were a kid. He was born and raised in near Katla, which was the glacier we were on. Mm-hmm. And she goes, aren't you upset about global warming? He literally laughed. He was like, no, not even a little bit. And everyone in the car, bunch of woke white people. I mean, let's be honest. Like that's who's in Iceland.
Yeah.
And she's like horrified. She's like, what are you talking about? And he was like, yeah. So we Icelanders have been recording our history for 1,100 years, give or take. Right? Like when everybody got here, it's a lot warmer in Iceland. Like we grew crops here. There was trees. It
was literally called Iceland to keep people away because they thought it was going to be cold. Yeah. Send them all to Greenland.
And he goes, he goes, then we have over 130 active volcanoes in Iceland. At the point where the last one erupted, it sent the world into a global ice age. And I said, wow. He goes, yeah, it dropped the temperature. This was in the 1700s. It dropped the temperature of Europe by almost 2 degrees centigrade. Like, wow. It was massive. It killed 25,000 people in Japan.
You know what's crazy? I said this to a patient today, and this is relevant to what you're saying here. I was like, have you noticed it's been cooler the last couple of days? I almost wonder if this fire is somehow... And I got real weird. I was like some global Earth intelligence going, hey, it's getting a little too hot. If I burn this part of the world,
yeah, the other part gets colder.
I can cool everything off.
Yeah.
And then I made some other joke that it was the devil himself coming to take Pat Robinson to hell.
Which is also not inaccurate. Yeah. And yeah, but like that's exactly that's exactly right though, right? Because like this guy was like, hey, this volcano erupts every 130 years, like on the dot.
Like Old Faithful.
And it is overdue by like 60 years now. He's like, this is not a matter of if, it's going to blow up. For 1,100 years, it has always blown up on a very, very predictable schedule.
Isn't it so funny how we know all of this stuff, and yet
we know nothing.
When we ignore it, the day-to-day gets too hectic where we're like, hey,
Yeah. And like, look, there was a light at the end of the tunnel here when COVID popped and everyone realized the shit was for real. Like I did see my friends and neighbors and family like get rational very quickly in the sense where they were like, look, I don't give a fuck about work right now because nobody's working. Like this is like, and everybody was able to like recalibrate to what was important. So I said, great. So shit hits the fan again. We are capable of it. We're dumb and it'll take longer the second time because, we hated it the first time and it got really inconvenient and we couldn't get our Starbucks frappes with the same degree of regularity. And that kind of is very grating for people.
Well, the things that people got bent about were so crazy. Like, oh, Amazon is not delivering today.
Yeah, no shit.
Like, did you really need that thing right now?
What's even funnier is what was the first thing that Maryland passed in COVID? Literally the first thing that I'm aware of that they passed in COVID that was legislature after COVID happened. Alcohol delivery.
Oh yeah. Was that it? Yeah. Yeah. And like, I love that the dispensaries, dispensaries were literally necessary. And and here's the reason, here's the medical reason for that, right? If you are an alcoholic and all of a sudden you get cold turkey, you could conceivably die from withdrawal. It's not going to happen to a lot of people.
Sure.
And I'm sure the really sensitive people would be like, well, fuck them. But it definitely could happen. And then the same thing with cannabis, right? You had a nation, especially with the VA, cold turkeying people off opioids.
Sure.
What are you going to do, right? So yes, it was kind of funny, but I totally get that, man.
I get it, but at the same time, when I look at the world in an apocalyptic view, let's peel this apart for a second. Actually,
yeah,
we are in the apocalypse, and you tell me that you have asthma,
yeah,
and I should be more considerate of your asthmatic needs as we are traveling north to the only known food supplies in our area. I'm going to take a rock and smash you in the face. I'm just going to it's nothing personal. But like, I can't be sympathetic to your asthmatic ass because it's the end of the world and I need some food for my family. And well, you're just dragging me down.
Well, now we actually get into a real, survival type instinct. But like, hopefully what we're doing now is preparing ourselves to be more resilient, right? I mean, that's the whole reason. It's not just living longer, it's living healthier. And those unknowns are really freaking scary, but we can't prep for those. We have to prep for what we can do to be wow, this sounds like a fucking army commercial. The best we can be.
Yeah, but you hit the nail on the head with what I was kind of like my takeaway on this was when you were like, it's not going to happen to a lot of people, but it's going to happen to some people. Like, let's just look at that philosophically for 2 seconds, right? The world is made up of a bunch of segments that something is going to affect them negatively in a very disproportionately small thing, right? The world's made up with thousands of those, if not more. I mean, I'm sure if we had AI crunching these numbers, we'd have a clearer picture. But like, there's so many things that fall under that bucket, right?
Yeah.
And yes, there's people out there that are going to be like, fuck the asthmatic. I'm going to smash that guy in the face. Like, who gives a shit?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I saw a joke where somebody's like, hey, it's like smoking 6 cigarettes, you know, if you go out there, and people are like, God, no one's let me smoke anywhere anymore. You know, like I'm going to go outside.
Right. Yeah. But here's the thing, like what it does make me believe, in fact, I'm sorry, not believe. What it does make me reinforce is that me keeping up, like this morning, I did what I do every day. Iodine through my salt inhaler, vitamin B, vitamin D, Flonase, and that X-Clear stuff, which, by the way, whether it cures COVID or not, I don't care. That shit's fucking amazing.
It's
like,
working for you.
As a daily prophylactic towards like general nasal inflammation, it's fucking miracle.
I've been hitting the neti pot really hard. I bought the Navage a while ago, and I'm putting my own little blend in there, and it seems to be working pretty well.
It's amazing. And like, so that's my every fucking day. So like when my body gets assaulted with random shit that it can't possibly predict for, now I'm not talking about napalm in your face. Like that's probably going
to be detrimental.
Yeah. But I am talking about like, you know, oh shit. Like, you know, I went to a, you know, concert and 50 people around me had COVID. Well, great. But at least I'm stacking the deck. Like, so you know what I mean?
Best
chance. And like, but I'm not talking about COVID. I'm talking about like life, like in general, right? Like,
and that's why we do it, right?
But that's why we do it, right? But here, I guess here's where people like, here's where I think the message would be awesome if everybody could hear is like, and I know you've taken umbrage to this with how people responded to the vitamin D thing during COVID, right? It's like, you know, your take on it was more like, people are wagging their finger at people
at people that aren't doing it.
Yeah. Right. And you're not wrong. Like, but I guess what this taught us, right?
Yeah.
What it should have taught us is that sentiment is not wrong, but it is prophetic in what needs to happen in a change situation.
And you can't, the other thing is you're not going to get the mass community to adopt anything, right? You know, and
I don't even need them to adopt vitamin D drops, right? Like, but what I do think like everybody would benefit from is, look, people did good when they were diverse. When shit was fucking like diverse and you could just, you know, you woke up in the wilderness, you went to bed in the wilderness, you existed in the wilderness, you fucked up in the wilderness, something ate you or, you know,
absolutely,
killed you.
Yeah.
Like the people that lived through that were fucking ninjas. You know what I mean? Like they were fucking straight up ninjas. So like there's something to be said about that, you know, and you know, and I don't know. I guess when I see these things and we take just to pick on the vitamin D thing because we were talking about.
I mean, that's pretty like that's pretty on par for what we're talking about.
Yeah,
right
but
now.
If you pick on that for a minute, it's like there's a ton of research that says vitamin D is helpful in innumerable amount of ways, right? And we can go on and on about these things, right? Like you can take like a zinc, right? Like taking iodine, like there's all these things that we know are good for us. Alpha lipoic acid, like, you know, is amazing. Like it does like a bazillion things, right? But and all of these things you could take. But you don't have to take them. They're kind of inconvenient to learn about. Like, and if you don't take them, you're not going to die. Like, there's nothing.
Very true. Yeah.
Like, you know, there's no difference. But because I take all those things or you take all these other things, I know you're all into a bunch of Chinese herbs I ain't ever heard of before. But if you're into all that stuff, like who's better, who's not? And I think the answer is, anybody doing things to fine tune their health are going to be better than people that aren't.
Absolutely.
And comparing your regime, my regime, his regime, her regime, whatever, is like largely irrelevant. Because like all I am is curious about what other people do, but I don't ultimately give a shit because unless somebody brings some truly next level shit to the table, like I'm kind of like confident in my level of research.
I got you. No, and you also have to, like, this is part of evidence-based medicine that people don't like to talk about, but you need to buy into what you're doing, right? You can't just do it blindly, you won't get the same results.
No. So anyway, I thought it was interesting. I mean, we've got this weird thing that we're talking about with this fire, and I'm like, what was that movie with Justin Timberlake where you had credits that
I don't remember the name of it, but I know what you're talking about. Like the wealthy people lived longer because they had other credits. People's time.
Yeah, they had time. And I said, and you know what? What did the wealthy people have that the poor people didn't? They had an entourage of sacrificable lambs because the only thing that could take them out, because they had amassed so much currency,
was actually people killing them.
Physical, acute cessation of your life by way of an axe or a gun or whatever. This one billionaire guy came out and there was 100 people that swarmed around him. It was just like fucking nuts. And I was like, in a world where the only way you die is by trauma, this makes all the sense in the world.
I mean, it might be a little prophetic too. I hate to say that.
But that's where I'm kind of drilling at, right? If you and I go out and spend $1,500 on a water filter and spend $5,000 on an air filter and pay for laborers to put that in, because statistically you can't do that. Like normal people can't do that. You're like $10,000 just to drink water and breathe.
Which is something that should be free, but that's another, that's another story.
But that's my point, right? Like, to dial in that at the level in which would be absolutely safer for you. Yeah. You got to drop like $10,000
easily.
And I'm like sitting there going, and that's just without getting weird. Like, whatever the water filter takes out, now we got to remineralize it. We got
to structure it,
pH balance it. We got to structure it. There's another fucking $20,000. Like,
man.
So it's like, if I had $1 billion, it would be maybe a different story. My house would have a whole subterranean basement dedicated to, treatment.
I gotcha. And that's what we see wealthy people doing, right?
I mean, maybe someday. Anyway, what are you up to, man?
So, man, I'm hoping maybe in a couple of weeks we'll talk a little bit about a peptide I started taking this week, and I'm starting to feel something from it. BPC 157.
Oh, you got a new one? Did you stop taking the other one?
I did. I didn't see the results that other people did, and now we're starting to see some other research coming out. But this BPC 157 is literally stands for body protecting compound. So it's got a whole bunch of benefits, and I really want to see how it goes. It's a 3-month course.
What are you feeling so far? Like, can you give us a teaser roll?
Generally feeling better, like less pain, easier movement, and it's supposed to even help repair your gut. So there's some really cool stuff with it, man. What are you into?
The new office is open for business.
Nice.
I'm moving in there.
Nice.
I'm having to make some Sophie's choices with gear because
I gotcha.
I have new space, but not infinite space, and so I get that. And so I'm like,
I know. I move some stuff around, and I'm like, what needs to get thrown out? What needs to go to storage?
Yeah, what's important and what's not. But soon, I really would love to have a show in the new space, because I'd love to show you firsthand. But
man.
But it's kind of like designed to be recording, right? Like,
man. Let's do it. Let's set it up. You let me know. I'll meet you there.
It's exciting. But man, I'll tell you what, this fucking stupid fire couldn't have come at a worse time. Like, I'm like, my every door in my house is open all day for contractors right now. So my entire house is filled with fucking.
IKEA had plenty of air purifiers.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm like, oh man, like it's like, oh, what an unfortunate situation. But yeah, that's it. So,
all right, man.
Well, listen, man, be good. Don't choke on all this
we'll
shit.
see. I'll be coughing from other reasons, but it'll be all right.
All right, cool, man. Later.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Be subversive, irreverent.
Health is wealth, but you knew that.
Everybody knows that.
But so is following us on social media at Irreverent Health. And check out our website for more exclusive content at irreverenthealth.com.
Oh, I like this.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Irreverent Health.